Oh no, say it ain't so. Lexie, come on, 6 Lexie Halls. Come on, Lexie. Lexie Hall is going viral for what she had to say about being teammates with Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark fans and all the scrutiny and criticism that comes with being on her team. This thing is spreading like wildfire.
Lexie Hall just stepped on a national TV and delivered a message that instantly made Caitlin Clark fans pause mid-scroll. No direct call-outs, no names mentioned, but the intent came through crystal clear. It was the kind of statement that doesn't need explanation, yet sparks instant debate across the board. Now the conversation has shifted fast. People are starting to wonder if this was more than just a moment of honesty. Was it a subtle signal about her future with the Indiana Fever? Or simply a real take on the pressure that comes with playing at that level? Either way, the noise is getting louder. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think Lexie Hall is hinting at an exit, or just keeping it real about the grind?
And Lexie Hall was on Fox News. She was on Fox News, and they asked her about some of the challenges of being a part of Caitlin Clark's team and playing with Caitlin Clark and all of this stuff. And she wasted no time to address, hey, you know, it can get nasty online. It's a lot of criticism that come with it. Man, Lexie might be out, y'all.
Let's jump straight in, because this isn't just another headline. Lexie Hall went on national television and delivered a message that instantly made Caitlin Clark fans pause mid-scroll. And even without naming anyone, the meaning came through loud and clear. The fact that this happened on Fox News made it even more intense, as she opened up about what it's really like to play alongside Clark and represent the Indiana Fever while dealing with nonstop pressure and attention. She kept things calm and professional, but didn't completely hold back, and that subtle edge in her words was enough for the internet to react instantly and send the clip everywhere. Now the conversation is getting deeper. People aren't just reacting. They're questioning whether this was pure honesty about the situation or a quiet hint about something bigger regarding her future in Indiana. So now it comes down to this. Was she just speaking real, or is there something more behind it? Drop your thoughts below.
I think the most challenging part is there's just so much scrutiny. People have opinions online, and unfortunately that's part of the job.
She was asked about the toughest part of being with the Indiana Fever, and her response came straight without hesitation. Lexie Hull pointed to the heavy scrutiny that comes with the spotlight, saying there's constant opinion online and that it simply comes with the job and the role. She then took it a step further, stressing that people often forget athletes are real individuals, not just names on a screen. And when conversations turn personal or attack someone's character, that's where things clearly go too far.
People should focus on us as people need to know that everyone's human. We're real people. I think that when things get blown out of proportion, when things get really personal and there's personal attacks on people's character, I think that's where.
Then the interviewer pushed further and asked her directly whether she had ever experienced those kinds of personal attacks herself. Lexie Hull didn't hesitate, but her answer carried weight. She admitted, "I'm sure I have. I try not to read comments for that reason," making it clear she's aware of the negativity, but chooses to stay away from it to protect her focus and mindset.
Ever been on the receiving end of one of those character attacks?
I mean, I'm sure I have. I try not to read comments.
What she's describing isn't a one-off experience. It's something that's clearly pushed her to step back from online noise entirely. Lexie Hull made it clear she's aware of the criticism, but choosing not to engage with comments has become part of how she protects her focus and mental space. That level of detachment usually doesn't come from isolated negativity. It comes from repeated exposure to it in a high-pressure environment. And here's where the conversation gets uncomfortable for some. A portion of that scrutiny she's talking about is coming from the same passionate audience that drives the massive attention around the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. The same energy that fills arenas and pushes viewership numbers also brings intense expectations. And when performances don't match those expectations, criticism follows fast in that space. Every missed shot, every quiet game, every rotation decision gets amplified. And players like Lexie often end up caught in the middle of fan debates about roles, minutes, and who fits around Caitlin Clark. It turns a team dynamic into a public discussion thread where emotions run high and judgment comes even faster. And when she spoke about it, you could hear how controlled she was with every word. Lexie Hull pointed out how differently people talk online compared to real-life conversations, where there's usually more restraint and less emotional reaction, and then made it clear she has to handle both playing the game and dealing with that constant outside pressure that comes with it. The harder part, as she implied, is not just basketball. It's staying steady while everything around the Indiana Fever gets magnified through public opinion. What stood out even more was how carefully she framed the team's rise, repeatedly referring to since 2024 instead of directly naming Caitlin Clark, even though the connection is obvious to everyone watching. That choice felt intentional, like she was trying to stay respectful to her teammate while still acknowledging the massive shift in attention, attendance, and visibility that changed everything for the franchise that year. It wasn't denial, it was diplomacy, a way of telling the truth without turning it into a headline about one person. There was also a moment where the discussion shifted to the physical edge of the game, and whether playing for the Indiana Fever brings extra intensity from opponents. Lexie Hull handled it carefully again, saying basketball is naturally physical and that social media often exaggerates how things look from the outside, repeating that online narratives can amplify what actually happens on the court, but that answer didn't land quietly for everyone watching. Some fans pointed to visible moments of physical wear and tough matchups, arguing that the intensity around the Fever feels different right now because of the spotlight surrounding the team and the presence of Caitlin Clark at the same time. Others say this is exactly the kind of pressure every high-profile team faces, where emotions run high, games get physical, and everything is magnified once it hits social media. That's where the debate now sits. Is the perception bigger than reality, or is the reality finally being seen clearly because of how much attention this team gets? That final stretch is where the conversation really shifts from reaction to reflection. Lexie Hull didn't come across as dismissive. She came across as guarded, carefully choosing language that protected teammates, the league environment, and the Indiana Fever brand, while still answering tough questions in real time. That balance often reads as restraint, but it can also signal how heavy the outside noise has become. When she spoke about scrutiny, social media pressure, and the way narratives spread, it painted a picture of a player constantly operating under external noise rather than just focusing on basketball. That doesn't mean frustration with the game itself. It points more toward fatigue with everything surrounding it, especially in a high-visibility environment built around Caitlin Clark and the attention that follows her presence. And that's where the wider discussion naturally moves. Modern athletes don't just evaluate teams based on role and minutes anymore. They also weigh environment, visibility, and mental load. For a defensive, high-energy contributor like Lexie, that value exists across the league, which means she does have leverage in how she shapes her future. So the real question becomes less about one interview and more about long-term fit. Whether the current setup in Indiana is sustainable for players who feel the weight of that spotlight every night, or whether change eventually becomes part of the equation. What comes through from that Fox News conversation isn't frustration with the game itself. It's the weight that comes with being constantly visible inside the Indiana Fever spotlight. Lexie Hull didn't sound like someone pulling away from basketball, but like someone fully aware of how uneven the attention can be, where mistakes travel further than the effort behind them. Her role is often built on things that don't trend: defensive pressure, physical effort, rotations that disrupt opponents, and the kind of hustle plays that rarely get replayed online. Meanwhile, the moments that stick in public memory are usually the missed shots, not the stops that made those shots difficult in the first place. That imbalance is part of what defines her experience in a high-exposure environment shaped heavily by attention around Caitlin Clark, and that's where the emotional layer becomes clear. Physical toughness is proven on the court, but dealing with constant public judgment is a different kind of challenge altogether, one that doesn't show up in box scores or highlight reels. The interview didn't reveal a player ready to walk away, but it did reveal someone fully aware of the cost that comes with staying in that spotlight, and how differently that cost is experienced depending on role, perception, and narrative. What stands out from this conversation is how powerful and complicated the spotlight around the Indiana Fever has become. The passion is undeniable, Packed arenas, rising demand, and constant attention show just how much the team has grown in visibility, especially with Caitlin Clark at the center of it all. But the same energy that fuels that rise can also create pressure for the rest of the roster. Lexie Hull didn't announce any decision or hint at leaving, but her interview highlighted what life can feel like inside that environment, where scrutiny follows performance and every moment is magnified far beyond the court. For role players who contribute in ways that don't always show up in highlights, that reality can feel especially uneven. Defensive effort, hustle plays, and consistency often get overshadowed by missed shots or isolated moments, which shapes how narratives form online. The center of it all is a bigger truth about modern sports. Fan passion is a huge strength, but when it turns into constant personal criticism, it can change how players experience their own careers. And while nothing in this interview signals an exit, it does underline how important environment becomes when players start thinking long-term about where they fit, grow, and feel supported. Both ideas can sit side by side. The Indiana Fever genuinely rely on what Lexie Hull brings: defensive effort, relentless energy, smart positioning, and the kind of work that makes stars easier to maximize. Those traits aren't easily replaced, and they're usually built over time, not found overnight on the market. At the same time, her interview made it clear that playing in this spotlight comes with a level of scrutiny that doesn't always reflect that impact. The visibility around the Fever, amplified by attention on Caitlin Clark, means every performance gets magnified, good or bad, while the quieter contributions often go unnoticed outside team circles. That's where the bigger organizational question sits. Keeping a player like her isn't just about contracts or stats. It's also about whether the environment feels sustainable enough for her to want to stay long-term. The front office doesn't just manage talent. It manages experience, perception, and stability inside a rapidly growing spotlight. In the end, nothing in her interview confirmed a departure. But it did highlight a reality every team with rising visibility eventually faces. Talent retention is about more than money. It's about making sure the people doing the hard, unglamorous work feel valued enough to stay in it.